The Lion's Roar, a tale of Henry Tudor. In the misty dawn of June 28, 1491, as the first light pierced the ancient oaks of Greenwich Palace, a cry shattered the summer hush. Henry Tudor, second son of King Henry VII and Queen Elizabeth of York, entered the world not with the fanfare of a crown prince, but with the quiet promise of destiny's shadow. The palace, a sprawling Tudor manor on the banks of the Thames, hummed with midwives' whispers and the scent of lavender and beeswax. His mother, the golden-haired Elizabeth, granddaughter of kings and peacemaker of the Wars of the Roses, cradled him first, her eyes alight with a mother's fierce love. His father, the shrewd Lancastrian victor of Bosworth Field, peered in from the antechamber, his lean face etched with the calculations of a man who had clawed a throne from bloodied mud. A sturdy lad, Henry VII murmured, already envisioning alliances in the boy's robust limbs. Little did they know, this child would one day rend the realm asunder, his heart a forge of passion and fury. Henry's infancy was one of velvet privilege amid England's fragile peace. Nursed in the royal nursery, he toddled under the watchful eyes of Margaret Beaufort, his grandmother, a pious, iron-willed widow whose devotions shaped the court's somber piety. By age 4, the boy's precocity shone like polished armor. He spoke fluent French, courtesy of Breton Tudors fleeing continental wars, and danced with the grace of a courtier twice his years. But shadows loomed. In 1495, his elder brother Arthur, the frail heir, was packed off to Ludlow Castle for princely training, leaving Henry as the indulged spare. The brothers' bond, forged in rare visits, was one of boyish mischief, Arthur's thoughtful sketches of castles contrasting Henry's boisterous romps with wooden swords. Yet plague and politics kept them apart, and when Arthur wed the Spanish Infanta Catherine in 1501, a match to bind England to Ferdinand and Isabella's might, Henry watched from afar, envy flickering in his sea-green eyes. Tragedy struck swift as a falcon's dive in April 1502. Elizabeth of York, Henry's anchor of warmth, succumbed to puerperal fever after birthing a short-lived daughter. The 7-year-old prince, torn from her bedside, wailed in the chapel's cold stone, his small fists pounding the altar. "Why take her, God?" he demanded of his confessor, a question that would echo through a lifetime of losses. Henry VII, grief-stricken and paranoid, retreated into ledgers and spies, his court a web of intrigue. Henry, now Duke of York, was thrust into studies, theology with John Fisher, the era's sharpest mind, astronomy under Italian exiles, and the lute whose strings he plucked with a king's budding arrogance. At Eltham Palace, he hunted with falcons and wrestled with pages, his body hardening into the athlete who would later joust like a god. But beneath the golden curls and sapphire doublets lay a soul scarred early, doubting divine mercy, craving control. Arthur's death in 1502 at just 15 from the sweating sickness that ravaged Ludlow, upended all. The 15-year-old Henry, summoned from Richmond, buried his father in Westminster Abbey with a splendor that masked his relief. The old king's miserly grip had choked the realm. The young king's coronation feast, a riot of venison and minstrelsy, heralded a renaissance. England wakes. The chroniclers crowed as Henry, broad-shouldered and auburn-haired, processed through London's cheering throngs, his crimson velvet cloak billowing like a banner of rebirth. Catherine of Aragon became his queen that same summer, their union a blend of politics and passion. At first, it burned bright. The scholarly Spaniard, with her dark eyes and unyielding faith, matched his intellect in debates over Erasmus's forbidden texts. They danced at masques, hunted in the New Forest, and in 1511 their son Henry, Duke of Cornwall, filled the nursery with hope, only for the boy to perish at 52 days, his tiny shroud a harbinger. More losses followed: miscarriages, stillbirths, and the daughter Mary in 1516, a fiery sprite with her mother's resolve. Henry's court glittered. Wolsey's rise as cardinal brought French silks and Italian artists, but the king's heart soured. A son he obsessed, poring over astrologers' charts by candlelight. By 1525, with Mary nearing 10 and no heir, doubt festered into desperation. Whispers reached him of Anne Boleyn, the black-eyed courtier returned from France, her wit a dagger to his complacency. Catherine, aging into quiet dignity, watched her husband's gaze wander, her rosary beads clicking like a countdown. The great matter, as it came to be called, tore the tapestry of Henry's soul. In 1527 he sought papal annulment, claiming Leviticus forbade a brother's widow, though he'd sworn otherwise at their wedding. Pope Clement VII, entangled in Charles V's sack of Rome, dithered, and Henry's impatience ignited. With Wolsey's fall in 1529, dragged from York Place in disgrace, the king turned to Thomas Cromwell, a blacksmith's son with a lawyer's cunning. Anne, elevated to lady-in-waiting, toyed with him through coded letters. "I am bold to beg your favor. Yours A.B." Their love, a storm of sonnets and secret trysts in Hever Castle's gardens, birthed Elizabeth in 1533, baptized amid fanfare as the Princess Henry dared proclaim. The act of supremacy that year severed England from Rome. Monasteries crumbled, their wealth funding palaces like none such, where Henry feasted amid frescoed gods. Anne's crown sat uneasy. Her miscarriages, save for Elizabeth, fueled Henry's paranoia. "She'll give me no prince." By 1536, as jousting accidents left him bedridden, his leg ulcer throbbing like divine rebuke, whispers of her adultery with courtiers like Mark Smeaton poisoned the air. Cromwell's web ensnared her. On May 19th, she mounted the scaffold at the Tower, her French hood framing a face, Cleves, painted as a Flemish Venus, but in flesh, sturdy and plain. "I like her not." Henry spat at Rochester, the disastrous meeting at Rochester Bridge sealing her fate. The marriage, a diplomatic farce, lasted 6 months before annulment. And wise and wealthy, retired to Hever as king's sister, her kindness a rare balm. Cromwell's ambition, however, proved his undoing. Accused of treason, he was beheaded in 1540, his fall a lesson in royal caprice. Youth beckoned next. Catherine Howard, Anne's vivacious cousin, wed the 49-year-old king in a whirlwind of youth's illusions. Her laughter echoed through Whitehall, her dances a fleeting spring. But her past, lovers like Thomas Culpeper, unraveled in 1541. Confessions wrung from her ladies painted a girl ensnared by folly. Henry's rage, once amorous, turned volcanic. "A whore," he bellowed, his ulcerated leg dragged to council as she was tried. Executed at 19 on February 13, 1542, her ghost haunted him. Sleepless nights where he paced, Bible in hand, questioning God's justice. War shadowed his later years. France and Scotland fell under his banners. Boulogne captured in 1544, but at ruinous cost. Thousands dead, coffers drained by debased coinage. Edward, his frail heir, studied under Protestant tutors like John Cheek, while Mary, bastardized yet devout, chafed under house arrest, and Elizabeth, the sharp-witted scholar, navigated her mother's taint with quiet brilliance. Henry's final bride, Catherine Parr in 1543, was no folly but a learned widow whose salves eased his pains and whose arguments tempered his doctrines. She reunited the fractured family at court, her stepchildren orbiting her like wary moons. Yet heresy hunts raged, Cranmer's pyres lit for an askew, and Henry's body betrayed him. Justs abandoned, a litter for processions, his once vital frame ballooned to 300 pounds, breath labored, mind veering between magnanimity and malice. In his last months, phantoms crowded the king's chambers at Whitehall. Dreams of lost wives, Catherine's rosary, Anne's laugh, Jane's lullaby, mingled with visions of judgment. He revised his will in December 1546, naming Edward heir, with Mary and Elizabeth in succession, the throne a Tudor bastion against Catholic resurgence. On January 28, 1547, as snow dusted the Thames, Henry VIII breathed his last at 55. The court, hushed in Westminster's vast hall, watched his cortege wind through torchlit streets, 52 cannon salutes thundering like a lion's final roar. He left a realm transformed, the Church of England his defiant legacy, monastery stones rebuilding a navy to rule the waves, and 3 heirs whose fates would blood the throne he forged in fire. In death, as in life, Henry Tudor was paradox incarnate, a Renaissance prince who painted miniatures with Holbein, a tyrant who dissolved abbeys for a son's birthright, a lover whose hearts he broke as easily as he mended a realm's fractures. His story, etched in the spires of his palaces and the scars of his people, whispers still, power is a crown of thorns, worn by a man who dreamed of eternity but grasped only the hour.